the prison of fear and the key to escape. Most people don't live small lives because they're lazy. They live small because they're scared. Not terrified of monsters or dark alleys, but something much deeper: fear of failure, fear of being seen, fear of being rejected, fear of standing out. These fears wear masks. They pretend to be logic. They call themselves being realistic. But underneath, it's fear. A quiet, consistent fear that pulls people back from their potential. It convinces them to play it safe, to wait, to delay their dreams until the right time. But that time never comes. And so they stay stuck, not because they can't move forward, but because they never try. Not because they lack talent, but because they lack the one trait that unlocks all the rest: courage. Courage is not some loud, fearless charge into danger. It's not the absence of fear. It's action in the face of it. It's showing up when your hands shake. It's speaking when your voice trembles. It's moving forward even when your thoughts are filled with doubt. Courage is the root of all real change, because without it, nothing begins. Without courage, talent stays unused. Intelligence stays trapped in overthinking. Ideas remain fantasies. Plans collect dust. Life doesn't change because people don't move. And they don't move because they're scared. But here's what most people don't realize. Courage doesn't arrive fully formed. You're not supposed to feel ready. You build courage like a muscle, one small act at a time. Every time you do the thing you're afraid to do, even in the smallest way, you add a rep. Speak up in a meeting? That's a rep. Say no when you usually say yes? That's another rep. Take the first step toward a dream that feels impossible? That's how you get strong. Courage grows not in the big moments, but in the small ones that no one else sees. The quiet battles between you and your own doubt. Fear is loud. It has 1,000 voices and clever excuses. You're not ready. You're not good enough. It's too late. You might fail. Courage, on the other hand, is quiet. It whispers, try anyway. It says, you might not win, but you'll grow. Courage doesn't promise perfection. It offers progress. And progress is the only path to change. So if you're waiting to stop feeling scared before you act, you'll be waiting forever. Fear doesn't disappear, but it does get quieter every time you choose not to obey it. So many people wonder why nothing changes in their life, why their dreams stay dreams, why their goals stay on paper. And it's not because they don't want it badly enough. It's not because they lack talent. It's because they never broke free from the prison of fear. They let it run their decisions. They let it dictate their days. They listened when it whispered, stay small, stay safe, stay hidden. And they called it being smart. They called it being responsible. But deep down, they know the truth. It's not logic. It's fear. Fear dressed up in reasonable clothing. But there is a way out. It starts not with a leap, but with a breath. A moment of awareness. A decision to face fear instead of flee it. And then a small act of courage. Just one. That's all it takes to begin. Say the thing. Try the thing. Stand up when you'd usually shrink. That's the real start of transformation. Not a new year, not a big speech, not a life-altering event. Just one moment where you choose courage over comfort. That's how it all begins. You are not weak. You are just afraid. And fear is not the enemy. It's the signal. It shows you where growth is. It points to what matters. And courage is the key that unlocks the door. So take the key. Use it. Start small. Start today. Because the longer you stay in fear, the more normal it feels. But the moment you start moving, everything begins to shift. Not because fear disappears, but because courage finally speaks louder. The illusion of readiness. Why waiting is the real enemy. There's a lie most people live by, and it's this: I'll start when I'm ready. It sounds smart. It feels safe. But it's not wisdom. It's fear with good PR. Readiness is a myth. It's an illusion your brain creates to protect you from discomfort. The truth is, you'll rarely feel ready for the things that matter most. You won't feel ready to chase your dream. You won't feel ready to leave the job that's killing your spirit. You won't feel ready to speak your truth, to confront the hard conversation, to make the big leap. But waiting to feel ready is like waiting for a storm to pass in a place where it always rains. You'll never move. You'll just sit there, getting older, more frustrated, more full of regret. Fear whispers, just a little longer. Learn a bit more. Wait until things calm down. Wait until you're more confident. But courage knows better. Courage says, go anyway. Courage understands that clarity doesn't come from thinking. It comes from moving. The path reveals itself to those who walk it, not to those who sit on the sidelines planning every step. You don't find certainty in your head. You build it with your hands, your voice, your choices. The more you act, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more confidence you earn. But the doorway to all of it is action. Not perfect action. Not fearless action. Just movement. Just start. Think about all the times you waited. Waited for the perfect timing, the perfect opportunity, the perfect mindset. And what happened? Days passed, then weeks, then years, and nothing changed. Not because you couldn't change, but because you were waiting to feel different before doing something different. But change doesn't work like that. The feeling doesn't come first. The action does. It's backwards, but it's real. You act scared, you act unprepared, and only after do you realize you were more capable than you thought. You grow in motion, not in waiting. Every person you admire, the bold, the resilient, the unstoppable, they weren't born ready. They became ready through reps, through showing up scared, through failing in public, through making mistakes and coming back anyway. Readiness was never a prerequisite. It was a byproduct of action. You think people like David Goggins, Alex Hormozy, or any leader you respect just knew what to do from the start? No. They acted when they were uncertain. They moved when it was messy. They didn't wait for motivation to show up. They built momentum out of motion. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Waiting is a choice. It's a decision. It's the decision to delay your growth. It's the decision to let fear run your calendar. It's the decision to believe the lie that you'll someday wake up feeling ready. But you won't. Readiness is something you create by showing up again and again, even when your legs shake, even when your voice trembles, even when everything in your mind screams, not yet. That's when it counts most. Ask yourself honestly, how many dreams have you buried under the excuse of I'm not ready? How many times have you said no to yourself just because you were scared? You weren't unqualified. You were just unwilling to move. But unwillingness is not the same as incapability. And that means you can change. That means you can take your power back. It starts with one act. Not a big one. Not a dramatic one. Just one. Speak up when you'd stay silent. Apply when you'd normally wait. Say yes to the thing that makes your heart race. Say no to the thing that steals your peace. That's how it begins. Readiness doesn't show up and knock. It's built by the ones who go before they feel prepared. Every time you choose action over hesitation, you rewrite the software in your brain. You begin training your mind to move instead of retreat. And every time you move, you collect evidence that you're stronger than your fear. That's what courage really is. It's not a personality trait, it's a practice. And you get stronger every time you do the thing you've been avoiding. So no, you don't need more time. You don't need another course. You don't need permission. What you need is to stop waiting for the stars to align, because they won't. Life doesn't hand you perfect conditions. It hands you the present moment. That's all you've got. That's all you ever need. The people who rise, who grow, who live lives of depth and meaning, they're not the ones who wait. They're the ones who move. And today, you can be one of them. You're not waiting for the right time. You're avoiding discomfort. But discomfort is the price of growth. And courage is the currency. So stop waiting. Take the step. Say the thing. Do the work. Not because you feel ready, but because you're done letting fear decide the kind of life you live. The comfortable prison, how safety becomes a cage. Comfort is a liar. It tells you you're safe, that you're protected, that you've made it. But if you look closely, you'll see the truth. Comfort is a beautifully decorated prison. One with soft pillows, familiar routines, and predictable outcomes. But it keeps you stuck. It keeps you small. It keeps you silent. Most people aren't living. They're surviving inside their comfort zones, repeating the same day over and over while calling it a life. And the worst part? They don't even realize they're imprisoned. They've accepted it. They've normalized it. They've made peace with a life that quietly eats away at their potential. You weren't born to live inside a box. You weren't built for repetition and quiet desperation. But somewhere along the way, you learned that it's safer to shrink. You learned that blending in is more acceptable than standing out. That silence causes less conflict than honesty. That routine is easier than risk. And so you traded freedom for familiarity. You stopped dreaming because dreaming made you feel exposed. You stopped trying because trying came with the possibility of failure. You stopped speaking because being misunderstood hurt too much. And one day, without even realizing it, you locked the door on your own potential. You didn't mean to, but fear is subtle like that. It doesn't yell. It whispers. It convinces you that staying still is wisdom, that playing small is maturity, that not wanting too much is humility. But none of that is true. It's fear dressed up in logic, hiding in your habits. You say you're just being realistic. But are you? Or are you just scared to want more? Because when you want more, you have to act. You have to risk. You have to grow. And growth is painful. Growth is messy. Growth means stepping into the unknown. And the unknown threatens your illusion of safety. But here's the paradox. Comfort feels safe, but it slowly kills. It kills your ambition, your fire, your hunger. It makes you numb to your own potential. You become a ghost in your own story, watching from the sidelines as others live, create, try, and fail forward. And you convince yourself that you're wise for waiting, careful for staying still. But what you're really doing is hiding. And deep down, you know it. Think about it. How many times have you stayed quiet when you knew you had something important to say? How many chances have you passed up, not because you weren't capable, but because stepping out of your comfort zone made your chest tighten? How many times have you said, "I'm fine," when you really weren't, just to avoid shaking things up? That's the prison. That's the life you're tolerating. And you can't grow while tolerating a life that keeps you from becoming who you were meant to be. The irony is, the longer you stay comfortable, the harder it becomes to leave. The mind adapts. It turns discomfort into danger. It starts believing that unfamiliar equals unsafe. And the moment you entertain a new idea, pursuing a goal, changing your path, starting something different, the alarm bells go off. Not because you're in danger, but because your comfort zone is being threatened. And this is where most people retreat. This is where they choose the known over the new. This is where they talk themselves out of action. They say things like, maybe it's not the right time, maybe I'm not cut out for this, or what if it doesn't work? But what if it does? What if stepping out is exactly what you need? What if the only thing standing between your current life and the one you dream of is your willingness to be uncomfortable? Every meaningful life is built outside of the comfort zone. Every breakthrough, every transformation, every victory, it all lives on the other side of resistance. No one builds greatness from the couch. No one finds their purpose by avoiding hard conversations. No one unlocks their potential by playing it safe. You think safety is your friend, but in reality, it's the anchor that keeps your ship tied to the shore. You were made to sail, to explore, to expand. But first, you have to unhook yourself from the lie that comfort equals happiness. It doesn't. It equals stagnation. And stagnation eventually turns into regret. Here's the truth most people won't tell you. The life you want will cost you the life you have. It will cost your comfort. It will cost your certainty. It will cost your pride, your routine, and your excuses. But it will give you something far more valuable. It will give you, the real you, the one buried under fear, the one you've only caught glimpses of when you were brave, the one who's been waiting, not for motivation, not for permission, but for action. And you don't need to blow up your life to find that version. You just need to start making new choices. Small ones, daily ones, uncomfortable ones. Say the thing, try the new path, raise your hand, set the boundary, apply for the opportunity, share your work, ask for help, admit that you want more. These are the cracks in the wall of your prison. And the more you push, the more the wall gives way. Until one day, you realize you're no longer a prisoner. You're the architect of your life. You're building something real, something bold, something yours. So today, take one brick out of the wall, one step into discomfort. Not because you know how it ends. Not because it's easy, but because it's time. Because staying stuck isn't the answer anymore. Because you're done living halfway. You've outgrown the cage. And deep down you know it. Comfort is a cage. Why safety slowly steals your life. There's a silent trap that most people never see coming. It doesn't arrive as a disaster. It doesn't strike like failure. It shows up gently like ease, like convenience, like comfort. It whispers, "You're fine right where you are. Why risk anything?" And that's how it begins, the slow, quiet death of your potential. Because while fear can be loud and obvious, comfort is stealthy. It doesn't scream, it seduces. It doesn't threaten, it reassures. It wraps around your life like a warm blanket. And before you know it, you're no longer chasing growth. You're managing decline. You're not evolving, you're maintaining. You're not living, you're existing. That's the cost of comfort. And it's the reason why so many people look around at their life one day and wonder, how did I end up here? See, most people don't fall because of a massive collapse. They fade slowly, quietly, invisibly, because they chose comfort over challenge one too many times. One skipped opportunity. One avoided conversation. One more day of doing what's familiar instead of what's necessary. That's how dreams die. Not all at once, but in small, unnoticeable compromises. And the worst part? We justify it. We convince ourselves that we're being responsible, that we're being practical. But often, that's just fear in disguise. We call it realism, but it's really just risk aversion. It's fear pretending to be wisdom. And every time we listen to it, we build a thicker wall around our life. A life that may feel safe, but also feel small. You weren't made to play small. You weren't built to sit in the audience and clap for the brave. You were born with the same fire, the same potential, the same raw material as anyone you admire. But potential means nothing without action. And the enemy of action is not laziness, it's comfort. Comfort drains your hunger. It numbs your ambition. It convinces you that good enough is good enough. But deep down, you know it isn't. You feel it when you scroll past someone doing what you wish you were doing. You feel it when another year passes and you haven't moved closer to what matters. You feel it when your soul whispers, there's more, but your habits say, stay where it's safe. That tension, that inner conflict, that's the voice of your unfulfilled potential. And if you ignore it for too long, it goes quiet. Not because it's gone, but because it's buried. People talk about burnout like it's the result of working too hard. But more often, burnout comes from the exhaustion of living a life that doesn't align with who you are. It's the fatigue of being unexpressed, of holding yourself back, of settling for less when you know you're meant for more. Comfort might keep you physically safe, but it puts your spirit to sleep. It slowly drains the energy that comes from challenge, from purpose, from movement. You think you're protecting yourself, but really you're shrinking. You're not conserving energy, you're caging it. And here's something most people never tell you. The longer you live in comfort, the harder it is to leave. Your threshold for risk gets lower. Your tolerance for uncertainty gets weaker. You start needing everything to be perfect before you act. You become hypersensitive to failure, allergic to discomfort. And so the cage gets tighter, not because the world is closing in, but because you've stopped stretching. You've stopped leaning into the edges of your own life. And unless you consciously choose to break that pattern, you'll live the same year 60 times and call it a life. So what's the antidote? Courage. Not the kind of courage that leaps off cliffs or makes grand gestures, but the quiet courage to choose growth over comfort again and again. The courage to lean into the uncomfortable conversation. To say no when it would be easier to stay agreeable. To start something new when you feel out of your depth. To be seen trying even if you fail. Every act of courage cracks the shell of comfort. Every moment of discomfort is a signal that you're waking up, stretching out, reclaiming your aliveness. Here's the truth. Your comfort zone isn't just a boundary, it's a prison. And the key isn't out there. It's in the decisions you make today. Do you stay on the path of least resistance, or do you challenge the narrative that's kept you playing small? Because the life you want isn't found in ease. It's built through effort. It's earned through decisions that stretch you, expose you, challenge you. And yes, that's scary. But you know what's scarier? Regret. Looking back and realizing you never truly showed up for your own life. That you let fear drive while you sat quietly in the backseat, watching years pass like scenery through a window. So if you're tired, if you're restless, if something in you feels stuck, it's not because you're broken. It's because you've outgrown the life you built inside your comfort zone. And it's time to step out. Not all at once, not in some dramatic overhaul, but one brave decision at a time, one moment of truth, one step that scares you just enough to make your heart beat faster. That's how you reclaim yourself. That's how you escape the silent trap. That's how you come alive again. The real reason you're stuck and how to break free. Let's get honest for a moment, not the kind of honesty that feels polite or filtered, but the raw kind. The kind that stings a little because it hits the nerve you've been avoiding. The real reason you're stuck in life isn't because you lack potential. It's not because you aren't talented enough, smart enough, or lucky enough. It's because somewhere along the way, you gave fear the keys. You let doubt take the wheel. You handed over control to a part of you that is more interested in survival than in expansion. You stopped choosing growth. And here's the truth. If you don't make the conscious decision to lead yourself, your fear will do it for you. And fear doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about your comfort, your safety, your familiarity. That's why you stay in jobs that drain you, relationships that shrink you, and routines that numb you. Because they're familiar. They don't stretch you. They don't demand anything new. And because they don't scare you, you mistake that feeling for peace. But let's be clear, peace isn't the absence of fear. Peace is knowing you're on the path, even when it's hard. You're not stuck because you don't know what to do. You're stuck because you haven't given yourself permission to try. You're not paralyzed by ignorance. You're paralyzed by hesitation. You've convinced yourself that you need clarity before you move, when really, clarity is a result of movement. You get clear by doing, not by waiting. And deep down, you know this. How many plans have you made that never turned into action? How many goals have you repeated year after year without traction? It's not a strategy problem. It's a courage problem. It's not about not knowing what to do. It's about not doing what you already know. And the longer you stay in that loop of overthinking, delaying, analyzing, the stronger the illusion becomes that you're not ready. You keep rehearsing your potential instead of releasing it. You stay in the realm of someday, while life quietly slips by. This is where most people live, in the waiting room of life, waiting for confidence, waiting for the perfect time, waiting until they feel less afraid. But the people who actually change their lives, they move while they're scared. They apply while they're doubting themselves. They show up even when they feel like imposters, because they've realized that action isn't the reward for feeling ready. Action is what makes you ready. And every time you choose to move instead of stall, you create momentum. And momentum is more powerful than motivation. Motivation fades. Momentum compounds. One small action today can create the shift that leads to everything else. But you have to start. You have to break the cycle of thinking without acting. Let me ask you something hard. When was the last time you truly challenged yourself? Not just in your head, not in theory, but in real life. When was the last time you looked fear in the eye and said, "I'm doing it anyway"? Because that's where the change begins. Not in the books, not in the journaling, not in the 10-step plans, in the doing, in the stumbling, in the repetition. That's how people transform. Not overnight, not all at once, but in the act of continuing, even when the voice in their head says, "What's the point?" You want to change your life? Here's where you start. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for a green light. The truth is, no one is coming to rescue you. No one is going to show up and hand you confidence, or hand you courage, or hand you purpose. That's your job. And if you don't choose to own that, your future will look a lot like your past, full of unstarted dreams and unfinished attempts. Understand this. You're not stuck because life is unfair. You're stuck because you haven't built the emotional endurance to face discomfort consistently. Growth is not a single act, it's a lifestyle. It's a decision you renew every day. It's showing up again and again when the old version of you wants to stay in bed, when your past tells you that you'll fail again, when your body wants to retreat. And that's why most people don't make it. Because they confuse discomfort with danger. They think resistance is a sign to stop, when it's actually a signal to begin. Every breakthrough in your life will be preceded by discomfort. Every next level of yourself will demand a deeper level of courage. You cannot have transformation without tension. And here's something beautiful. The act of choosing discomfort on purpose, of choosing the hard thing, is what slowly rewires your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who quits, someone who avoids, someone who breaks under pressure. You begin to see yourself as capable, as consistent, as powerful. And that shift is everything. Because once your identity changes, your actions follow. Once you start believing that you're someone who faces fear instead of fleeing it, you stop entertaining the excuses that used to hold you back. You start playing offense with your life. And suddenly, doors start opening. Not because the world changed, but because you did. So if you're stuck right now, if you're frustrated, if you're angry at yourself for not being further along, good. That means you're awake. That means you care. That means you're not done yet. But now it's time to take that fire and turn it into movement. No more waiting. No more mental rehearsals. No more delaying your life. Pick the one thing you've been avoiding and do it today. Take the step you've been circling for weeks. Have the conversation. Send the message. Start the process. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be bold. It just has to be real. That's how you break free. Rebuilding from within. Becoming the person your future demands. If you've made it this far, something in you is waking up. You've tasted the bitterness of stagnation. You've felt the ache of unlived potential. And you're done pretending you're okay with it. Good. That's the beginning of real transformation. But the next step, the one most people skip, is the hard inner work of rebuilding from within. See, the external world reflects your internal one. You can change jobs, move cities, join programs, follow routines. But if your self-belief is brittle, if your mindset is wired for limitation, you'll recreate the same patterns in new places. You'll still second-guess yourself. You'll still sabotage good opportunities. You'll still settle for less than you're capable of. Because true change doesn't come from switching environments. It comes from becoming a different person in the same environment. And that's an inside job. Becoming the person your future demands starts with auditing the beliefs you live by. What do you believe about yourself when no one's watching? What narratives run in the background of your mind when things get hard? Most people don't even realize they're living inside a mental script they didn't choose. One they inherited from childhood, from past wounds, from moments where they failed and made that failure part of their identity. I'm not consistent. I always mess things up. I never finish anything. These aren't facts. These are beliefs. And beliefs are decisions you keep choosing. But here's the game changer. If you can choose to believe something disempowering, you can also choose to believe something new. You can rewrite the script. You can decide right now that you are the kind of person who keeps going, who shows up, who handles the pressure, who becomes what they were born to be, no matter how long it takes. Rebuilding from within also means learning emotional self-discipline. It's not sexy. It's not loud. But it's the backbone of transformation. It's a quiet power of learning to sit with discomfort without fleeing, of moving through fear without freezing, of navigating stress without crumbling. Emotional strength is what makes consistency possible. It's what lets you keep showing up when the motivation fades, when the results aren't instant, when no one else claps for you. Because let's be honest, there will be long stretches where no one sees the work you're doing. No one applauds your effort. No one understands the battles you're fighting. And if you don't have that internal drive, if you haven't trained your mind to stay the course, you'll quit, not because you're weak, but because you never built the muscle to endure. This is where most people fall off. They think the breakthrough is the moment they feel ready, feel inspired, feel certain. But real growth is built in the days you don't feel it. When you wake up exhausted and do it anyway. When everything inside you wants to shrink back and you take a single step forward. That's where the magic happens. That's where your identity begins to shift. Not in leaps, but in layers. Not in epiphanies, but in repetition. And the more you show up like the version of yourself you want to become, the more that version becomes real. You don't wait to feel like your future self. you act like them now. You ask, what would the strong, grounded, focused version of me do today? And then you do it no matter how small. Rebuilding also means addressing the environments and energies you've been feeding on. Who do you listen to? Who do you spend time with? What kind of content are you consuming? Because all of that shapes your inner world. You cannot become powerful while staying plugged into people and spaces that thrive on drama, doubt, or defeat. You've got to curate your atmosphere like your life depends on it, because it does. Guard your mind. Protect your energy. Choose input that elevates you. This isn't about arrogance. It's about alignment. If you're serious about growth, you can't afford to let noise in. You need clarity, fuel, and focus. So surround yourself with people who remind you of your power, not your past. Listen to voices that challenge you, not coddle you. And start speaking to yourself with the same fire you give others. Let's talk about failure, too, because when you rebuild from within, you stop fearing it. You start seeing failure as data, not a death sentence. You realize failure is proof of effort. It means you're trying. It means you're moving. And every time you fail and keep going, you chip away at the part of you that once believed failure meant you weren't enough. That's how confidence is built, not through perfection, but through resilience, through becoming the kind of person who can fall 10 times and rise 11. And eventually, failure stops feeling personal. It becomes a stepping stone, a lesson, a chapter, not a verdict. And that mindset alone will set you free in ways no external win ever could. Here's the truth. No one can do this work for you. You can read the books, watch the videos, follow the influencers, but at some point, you have to look yourself in the mirror and decide, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm becoming. That's the line in the sand. That's where the rebuild begins. You stop outsourcing your worth. You stop blaming the world. You stop romanticizing ease. And you start showing up like your life depends on it. Because it does. Your future is being shaped by what you choose today, not someday, not when things calm down, not when you're finally ready, but now. And if that sounds overwhelming, start small. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for proof. One small promise kept to yourself. One task followed through on. One day you didn't quit. Stack those wins. Celebrate them. Let them compound. And over time, you'll look up and realize you've become the kind of person you used to admire. Not because you had all the answers, but because you stopped waiting for them and started becoming the answer. Building the life that matches your growth. Turning inner change into outer reality. Now that the inner foundation has been rebuilt, layer by layer, choice by choice, it's time to step into a new dimension. Creating a life that mirrors the person you've become. This is the part where you stop merely surviving and start crafting. No more reacting to life like a passenger hoping for better scenery. This is where you take the wheel, set the GPS, and start driving with intention. The mindset you've been developing wasn't just for personal healing. It was preparation. Because inner transformation without outer alignment leads to friction, frustration, and stagnation. If your habits, relationships, and environments don't reflect your elevated identity, you'll constantly feel like you're outgrowing your own life. So now, it's time to build externally what you've already decided internally. Building that life starts with clarity. What does the next level version of you actually look like? Not just in thought, but in action. What does their day feel like? What kind of people are in their circle? How do they spend their time? What boundaries do they honor? What values are non-negotiable? You can't architect a meaningful life with a blurry blueprint. Most people are stuck in cycles they hate because they never defined what they want. They live in vague hope instead of clear vision. But here's the truth. The more detailed your vision, the easier it is to reverse engineer it. You begin designing systems, schedules, and environments that support it. Your goals stop being lofty ideas and start becoming coordinates you're actively walking toward. And yes, action is the separator here. It's one thing to dream, to visualize, to hype yourself up with potential. But at some point, you've got to bring the dream into the dirt, into the details, the discipline, the deliberate repetition. You've got to anchor that vision into your calendar, into your morning routine, into the food you eat, the projects you pursue, the people you spend time with. Every action either affirms your future or delays it. Every moment becomes a vote, cast for the life you're building or the one you're trying to leave behind. That's how real momentum builds, not through explosive breakthroughs, but through daily alignment. The kind where your external world starts bending to the weight of your internal conviction. You also need to become brutally honest about what no longer fits. That includes old habits, yes, but also old identities, dynamics, and distractions. It might mean stepping back from relationships that were built around your former self, the one who played small, avoided risk, or settled for comfort. It might mean quitting projects that don't align with your mission anymore, even if they're safe or profitable. It might even mean reintroducing yourself to the world, not as the person they remember, but as the person you've become. That takes guts. It takes faith. And it will absolutely make people uncomfortable. But that's not your problem. Your life isn't a democracy. It's a responsibility. And your job is to stay loyal to your future, not your past, and not anyone else's expectations. Let's talk about structure, because it's often overlooked. People love to romanticize freedom, but the truth is, freedom is earned through discipline and design. A life of purpose doesn't just appear. You build it piece by piece. That means creating rhythms that support your energy, your creativity, and your focus. It means building systems that make success easier to access and failure harder to fall into. Whether that's batching your deep work, carving out solitude for reflection, or eliminating time-sucking distractions, structure is your friend. Not because it makes life rigid, but because it gives your passion a container. Without it, even the most motivated version of you will burn out or drift off course. And then there's your circle, the people around you. If you're serious about building a powerful life, you have to elevate the conversations you're in. Surround yourself with people who normalize growth, who talk about ideas more than gossip, who push you when you hesitate and check you when you veer off mission. The energy of your environment is contagious, and if you're always around people who settle eventually, so will you. But if you stay in proximity to ambition, to vision, to courage, then your fire stays lit, even on the days your own motivation wavers. Find those people, build with them, challenge each other, celebrate each other, and watch your progress multiply. Now let's zoom out. You've rebuilt your mindset. You've created new habits. You've elevated your standards. But what you're really doing, on a deeper level, is becoming a creator in your own life. No longer a reactor. Not just someone who takes what's given, but someone who chooses what they experience. And that shift from victimhood to ownership, from passivity to power, that's where true freedom lives. You realize the job wasn't to find the perfect life, but to forge it. To take the pieces you've been handed and carve something extraordinary with them. And when that clicks, everything changes. Because now, you no longer fear the unknown. You welcome it. You understand that you were built to navigate it. You have the tools. You have the grit. And you have the vision. Lastly, let's talk about legacy. Because when you start building a life in alignment with your truest self, you stop chasing success just for yourself. You start thinking generationally. You start asking, how does the way I live ripple out into the lives of others? You realize your transformation isn't just about you. It's about everyone who watches you rise and begins to believe they can too. It's about the energy you bring into rooms, the standards you raise by simply existing in your power, the quiet inspiration you offer without saying a word. That's real influence. That's impact. And that's what happens when your inner world and outer world finally match. When your identity, actions, and environment all align into one undeniable force. So here you are, not at the end, not at the peak, but on solid ground. A new beginning, this time on purpose. You've done the hard work of becoming. Now it's time to build boldly, brick by brick, day by day, with clarity, integrity, and an unshakable belief in who you are and what you're here to create. Legacy in motion. Living a life that echoes beyond you. There comes a moment on the path, after you've healed, rebuilt, and risen, where you begin to think beyond yourself. Not out of obligation, but out of a deeper knowing that your life is not just yours to live. It's a thread in a much larger tapestry, one that stretches across generations and ripples through time. This is where the journey becomes legacy. Not the legacy people talk about in headlines or carved into stone, but the real kind. The impact you have on hearts, minds, and spirits long after you've left the room. This is about what your life awakens in others, what it creates, what it sustains. It's about making sure that your presence, your choices, values, and vision echo far beyond your physical reach. Legacy is not something you build later. It's something you're building right now, in how you treat people, in the energy you carry, in the decisions you make when no one is watching. It's the ripple effect of living in alignment. Every time you show up with integrity, every time you choose courage over comfort, every time you speak truth when silence would be easier, you're laying down bricks of legacy. And those bricks become foundations for others. Your children, your students, your community, even strangers who may never know your name but feel the impact of the systems, spaces, or stories you help create. That's what makes legacy so powerful. It's not about being remembered. It's about making a difference that lasts. But here's the truth most people avoid. Legacy requires intention. It doesn't happen by accident. You have to choose what you want to leave behind. You have to ask the hard questions. What do I stand for? What do I want people to feel when they encounter me? What values do I want to plant into the soil of this world? You have to stop chasing validation and start living by conviction. Because the world will try to distract you, tempt you with comfort, status, or shortcuts. But legacy isn't built in the easy moments. It's carved out in the quiet, in the consistency, in the conviction to hold the line when it would be easier to fold. You don't need a stage, a title, or a massive platform. You just need to live so intentionally that the trail behind you becomes a roadmap for someone else's rise. And legacy doesn't only live in your accomplishments. It lives in your relationships. How you love, how you listen, how you show up for others even when it's inconvenient. The way you pour into people's lives, not because you want credit, but because you care. The words you leave behind when someone's heart is breaking. The example you set when you think no one's watching. These are the quiet echoes that carry your spirit forward. Because at the end of it all, people won't remember every detail of what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That's the heartbeat of legacy. Not perfection, but presence. Not performance, but purpose. There's also another layer to this. Your evolution becomes part of your legacy. Because the world doesn't need more statues frozen in time. It needs examples of real, breathing humans who grew, who stumbled and still stood up, who changed their mind when they learned better, who kept evolving, even when it meant shedding layers of identity. That's what gives people permission to grow, too. Legacy doesn't mean staying the same forever. It means staying true to your essence while continuously expanding into new levels of self-awareness, impact, and love. You become a living example that growth never ends, and that's what inspires others to keep climbing. Eventually, you start to feel the shift. Life isn't just happening to you or even for you. It's happening through you. You become a channel, a vessel, a force. You start seeing your gifts not as something to hoard, but as something to steward. Whether it's your creativity, your empathy, your leadership, your resilience, these are not accidents. They were given to you with purpose. And the more you align your life with that purpose, the more the universe begins to expand around you. Opportunities appear. People show up. Doors open. Because when you are committed to serving something bigger than yourself, life responds. And legacy becomes not just what you leave behind, but what you activate in every room you walk into. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not this year, but one day you'll look around and realize you did it. Not because everything is perfect, but because you became someone you're proud of. You built something real. You touched lives. You left spaces better than you found them. And you lived in a way that, if the world had to run off your example, it would be okay. That's legacy. That's power. And it doesn't require applause. It requires authenticity. That is your mark on the world, not in monuments, but in moments. Not in ego, but in impact. Not in the noise of fame, but in the stillness of truth. So now the question is no longer, what do I want to have, or even who do I want to be? The real question becomes, what will I leave behind? And the answer isn't written in the future. It's written in how you choose to live right now. Every word, every choice, every breath. They are all shaping something bigger than you, something that will outlive you, something that will echo for years to come. You are already the legacy in motion. Keep going, keep giving, keep growing. The world needs more of your light, and someone out there is already watching, already changing, already believing because of you.